I think it's time to organize this mess in my bedroom. Hey everyone, Pat here. To clean up that mess I just showed you, I made a Valet Box, which is really just a jewelry box for guys. But, you know, Valet Box sounds cooler. Now, this is the first time I've made a decorative piece, so I decided to keep the design simple, use inexpensive materials, and I bought a new tool to help me out, a compound miter saw. It's not an expensive model. The bezels only go one way, and it doesn't have fancy features like a laser guide or anything like that, but it works great at making accurate cuts, which will make this project much easier. And it only cost about $100, so it's a great price for such a useful tool. If you're curious about what model I bought, I put a link in the description below. I made the Valet Box out of oak hobby boards I bought from Home Depot. All combined, the wood only cost about $25, so it's not a very expensive project. Let me show you how I made it. I started by cutting the bottom of the box to size from a 1/4 inch by 6 inch oak board. I cut the base to 12 inches wide with a simple straight cut on my new miter saw. So the box itself will be about 6 inches by 12 inches. I'm going to fit together the bottom and sides of the box using a 1/4 inch rabbet in the side pieces. So before I cut the 1/2 inch by 4 inch boards that'll make up the sides, I used my router to add a 1/4 inch square groove along one edge. As you can see, the base will fit perfectly flush into this rabbet. I'll construct the top of the box using the same technique. So I used the same setup to route a similar rabbet in the 2-inch pieces that'll form the sides of the top piece. Next, I set the bevel of my miter saw to 45 degrees and started cutting the side pieces to the correct length. All 4 sides need the 45-degree cut so they'll fit together without showing any end grain. I also cut a small piece from the side stock that'll divide the open section of the box from the lidded section. I trimmed off a 1/4 inch from the bottom of that piece so it'll sit at the same height as the other sides of the box. To assemble the sides, I applied wood glue to all the joints and then carefully clamped them together with the clamps I had on hand. Band clamps would have made this a lot easier, but I managed with what I had. I added the bottom piece into place to make sure all the sides are perfectly square, but that piece isn't glued in yet. Once that dried, I glued in the bottom piece. I tried to make sure that the glue was spread out on both the horizontal and vertical surfaces of the rabbet for a stronger bond. To finish the base, I added the divider. I put it about 5 inches from one side, so the lidded part will be a little larger than the open part. I carefully glued it into place and tried to minimize any excess glue getting on the exposed wood, since I'll be staining it later on. For the lid, I cut another piece of the 1/4 inch board to fit the larger section of the base. I left a 1/4 inch of space on all sides for the side pieces to fit in. I decided to add a small 1/8 of an inch round over to the pieces before cutting it, which I did on my router. Then I carefully measured each piece and cut 4 sides with the 45-degree bevel again. By taking my time, measuring accurately, and cutting precisely, all the top pieces fit together snugly. Just as with the base, I assembled the lid by gluing up the joints and carefully clamping the side pieces together. Once that was done, I glued the top piece into place too. Once the pieces were assembled, I spent some time sanding the box. I rounded over all the corners, I made sure all glue was gone from any exposed wood, then I used 240 grit and eventually 400 grit sandpaper to give the box a nice smooth finish. Before staining the wood, I used a wet paper towel to wipe off most of the sawdust. Then I used mineral spirits to give it a final cleaning, which would also reveal if I missed any glue on the wood. Once it fully dried, I stained all of the wood. I used a dark cherry stain that only takes 1 coat to get an even color. Finally, to protect the wood and improve its look, I used a few coats of spray lacquer. I made sure to cover all parts of the wood, even the bottom. And once the lacquer dried, I attached the lid using some decorative hinges. I was being very careful in this step because I didn't want to mess up something simple this late in the process. But once the hinges were attached, the box is totally done and ready for use. So there you have it. It took a bit of work, but none of it was very difficult. And I'm really happy with the construction of the box. The miter saw made it really easy to make those precise cuts I needed, so everything fit together perfectly. And this makes me more confident, so maybe next time I make something decorative, I'll use more expensive wood like cherry instead of using oak and then staining it a cherry color. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, consider subscribing to my channel or give my video a thumbs up. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.